Welcome to our set. One of the genuinely great players, not only in the NFL today, but that has ever played in the NFL. From the Arizona Cardinals, the finalist for the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award. Larry Fitzgerald is with us on Mike and Mike. Always a pleasure to see you. How are you, Larry?
It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you guys having me.
Great to have you here. Just a little bummed out you wouldn't have waited to make the decision to come back on this show
could
right now.
Could have saved the announcement for us.
Build it up the entire week, and then, let everybody know.
Our great partners at Nationwide told me I needed to come out a little early with this.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Hey, smart man.
Yesterday, there are two different elements, I suppose, to being a professional football player. One of them is being a great football player, and the other one is being a professional. We had your young teammate, David Johnson, sitting in that chair yesterday at around this time. And he talked, when I asked him to talk about playing with you, he didn't say anything about football. He talked about the instruction you have given him, the advice you've given him on conducting himself as a professional, on being cognizant of his brand, and being cognizant of the way people perceive him and all of that. So that's a fascinating way for your mind to work. From where did that come from for you? Where did you learn that?
Well, first, David, he's one of those toys you get under the Christmas tree that's already assembled when he comes there. I mean, he's a really nice young man and a terrific football player and great asset. But, I have to tribute my parents. They did a great job of, instilling some good values in my brother and I. And, it's simply that, just trying to just live life right and be a man of character.
But I'm sorry, Mike, but specifically when it comes to that, to being a professional, what does it mean to you? When I say people say Larry Fitzgerald conducts himself as a professional extraordinarily well, what does that specifically mean to you?
That means I pay attention to the details. I'm punctual. I do the things that I'm asked to do. I'm a good teammate. I'm a good father. I'm a good brother. Things that I think just as a human being that you're supposed to do. I take pride in those things, and it's not lost. There's a lot of guys, Greg Olsen and Eli Manning and other guys around the league who hold those same values and try to live their life in high regard.
And as far as, this decision that you made this week, anybody who plays for any amount of time, earlier on in your career, it's always like the season ends and we look forward to next year. It's just, when are we going to start training next year? And then you hit a point where you start thinking about the mortality of the year thing, and I have to make a decision in the offseason. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Is this the first, or have there been others, or where are you with that?
I'm saying it's probably the first year. It never really come into my mind like that. But, after this year, I was so banged up physically, mentally, psychologically, falling short of your goal, finishing the season terribly after what we were able to accomplish the year before. I just didn't want to go out like that. That's not where I wanted to finish my career on a 7-9 and 7-8-1 team. I wanted to try to finish on a much higher note, and we've got a great team coming back next year. Wonderful coach in Bruce Arians, and I'm really excited about our prospects.
Mike and Mike, our Sports Center, brought to you by Tommy John this Valentine's Day. Make sure that you're sporting the most stylish, comfortable, and functional underwear available. Tommy John, treat yourself to an exclusive Valentine's Day bundle at TommyJohn.com now and save 20% on your first order with the code Mike. That's Mike for 20% off at TommyJohn.com. So again, for those who don't know what we're referring to, you have announced you're going to come back and play next year. There's some question about Carson Palmer, your quarterback. There was a story early in the week that he was selling his house and taking his kids out of school. He squashed all of that initially. Is it your expectation that he will be your quarterback next year?
Oh, I don't have any expectations. Carson's going to make a decision that's best for him. As a friend and as a team, and I think it's in our best interest to let him take his time and make a decision that's best for him and his family. We missed him to a game with a concussion last year, and we want to make sure that he's in his right mind and he's making a decision that is best for him and his family. But we would love to have him back because he's one of the best in the business.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I just wonder, at this stage in your career, when you do think about that decision, about whether to play another year or not, all of the talk about head injuries and things like that, and the legitimate concerns a lot of football players have for that, where does that enter into the equation as you consider playing another year?
No, it's very high on the list. The research on the brain is not even really that old. It's 15, almost 20 years old. In the grand scale of things, that's not that long. So there's new information coming out all the time. And, you want to make sure that you're able to play ball with your kids and be a grandfather one day and have all your faculties. And so I think that's something that always comes into play.
Do you like the direction, with more coming out about head injury, and we're learning more, as you said, we're still kind of in the infancy stage there. Do you like the direction, maybe not even NFL, but all the way down, that football is kind of going to, again, you'll never make it a completely safe game, but the steps they're taking to help with this?
I do. I really do think the NFL spearheaded a great campaign in terms of, heads-up football and making sure that guys are tackling properly and is being taught at the early stages. Like my son now, he wants to play. He's chomping at the bit, and I'm not going to tell him he can't play because my parents never told me, you can't do this. They always encouraged me to do whatever my heart desired. I'm going to do the same thing for my sons. And, I'm going to support him, and I'm going to make sure I watch him and make sure, he's making the tackling in the proper way.
Mike, that's obviously something you know a lot about.
Yeah. My wife and I are very involved in the heads up, and that's where it's got to start at the youth league. They're the next Sunday players, down the road. And as I said many times, tackling, and a lot of it in the NFL is bad now because of that's just the way the guys were taught at a younger age. And as, like anything else, we become smarter in things and learn how to teach for the next group coming through.
I would hate to take my sons and not allow them to learn so many of the great principles that I was taught as a young player. Just the teamwork, the accountability, getting knocked down. You're going to get knocked down in life. It's never okay to lay down. You got to get up and continue to fight. And I learned some great things, competing in the game. And it's the ones that I think my sons will learn from it and make them a better man as well.
But you're right. And that's the key is they go outside the world of sports and what they can learn with teamwork and everything. I'm glad you had that feeling that way as well.
Larry Fitzgerald is with us here. You played a brilliant game in the Super Bowl when you were in it. 8 years ago it is now, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game, capping off what was maybe the best postseason run any receiver has ever had. But we've had a couple of players, Drew Brees said it when he was sitting here this week, say that the beginning of the Super Bowl was very tough. It took a series or two for him to sort of shake off the jitters and make it a regular game. What is your recollection of that? How long did it take you to get into the game in the Super Bowl?
It definitely is not a normal game. The TV breaks are longer. There's so much pageantry and so many people on the field. You see, admirals and colonels and planes flying over, and it's just so much different than a normal game. So it definitely takes a little bit, to keep going. But when you get going, there's always TV timeouts that kind of take you out of the rhythm. I think it's important throughout the course of the week. Coach Wisenhunt, would stop practices for periods of times, to kind of get us ready and acclimated for what was to come in the game.
And so you played both teams that are in this game this season. You played the Patriots all the way back in week 1, feels like a million years ago, and you played the Falcons. But you can give us some scouting report. Let's start with Atlanta. The defense is fast. Obviously, it has improved as the season's gone on. What is your scouting report on the Atlanta defense?
Well, I really like the way their back end has improved. They were very young early in the season, and they started to mature as the year went on. But Vic Beasley and Dwight Freeney, they have to do a great job of being able to create pressure without blitzing Tom Brady. That's going to be the key to success because, when you bring pressure, especially 5- and 6-man pressures, Tom historically has picked you apart.
And then New England, you played the first game of the season. You had 8 catches and that 81 yards and a couple of touchdowns. But we always know about that defense of New England. Do you see them, how they adjust during the game? There was so much talk about that, the chameleon. Do you notice that in the game, their adjustments?
Oh, absolutely. If there's something that you're doing that's having success, you're going to see immediately change on the sideline. They do a great job of adjusting throughout the course of the game, dealing with different personnel packages that Atlanta's going to be throwing at them. You give Coach Belichick and his staff 2 weeks to prepare for somebody. You have to think that they'll be ready to go.
Larry Fitzgerald is the third finalist. I say it that way because we've had all 3 now for the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award, which is presented by Nationwide. It will be presented officially tomorrow night at the NFL Awards evening. Mike, as you've mentioned, there was no loser in this. No. Someone will win the award, and it is, I think, in its own way, the most prestigious award the National Football League has. What does it mean to you to be a finalist?
Well, it means a great deal. I was a finalist a few years ago, and to be respected by your peers and somebody that the National Football League believes is doing things the way they set the standard for it means a lot to me. And I'm around some great guys. Greg and Eli, I've known them for a very long time. I mean, they're tremendous human beings. And other 29 finalists who were winners for their team. Also, congratulations to those guys.
Well, and I'd like you to expound upon that because, a lot of times out in media and because we can be out there so quick with Twitter and everything, you see a lot of bad headlines. But there are a lot of players. You get 3 finalists that you mentioned, 1 from each team. But even beyond that, there's so many players that are so involved in their causes that you don't see cameras in front of all the time. So just speak to that. I mean, there's way more good than bad of what players are doing in this league.
I completely agree, and I tell people that quite often. Good news doesn't always sell. The guys are out there and they're active. They're actively involved in making, young people aware of the mistakes that they've made, and also how to avoid the pitfalls that they've come through. And I think it's important that young people see that. They're emulating us. I walk the streets and I see Julio Jones jerseys and Eli Manning jerseys and Antonio Brown jerseys. These young people look up to us. They respect what we do. They try to emulate us, and we have a role that we have to play, and that's setting a good example.
Mike, it's a huge weekend, of course, in so many ways. Our forward thinking is brought to you by Cabbage, who has provided over $2.5 billion in flexible funding for today's small businesses. That's Cabbage with a K, of course, in addition to the Super Bowl. On ESPN Radio, we have Saturday night, LeBron and the Cavaliers taking on Melo and the Knicks. That's 7:30 Eastern. Sunday, before the football, it's the Clippers and Celtics with coverage beginning at 1 Eastern. And super quickly, of course, Larry, you went to Pitt, and I can't remember who they played in the bowl game this year. Mike, who did Pittsburgh play in a bowl this year? It's not coming immediately.
They played Northwestern. Go ahead, rub it in.
I can't remember who won that game.
Whatever. Northwestern squeaked by.
James Conner got banged up in the game.
He did.
There's none of that. Northwestern won the game, and it's as simple as that. And Pitt beat Clemson, and Clemson won the championship. Yes. So in their own way, Northwestern won the national title.
But our academic standards are much higher still at University of Pittsburgh.
There you go.
We won't have that argument. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Everybody, enjoy the Super Bowl.